What if everything you're going through is actually getting you ready? It's preparing you for what you dream of, what you asked for. You see, nothing in life is random. You might think it is, but there's a reason behind everything.
Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about, did the breakup happen for a reason? So we have two videos that we're going to share with you today and talk about some of the points that are made, because this idea of things happen for a reason is very interesting. People really like to put meaning on things in life. It brings them comfort. It helps them cope. It helps them deal with tragedies, or helps them take something and maybe learn a lesson from it. And so sometimes we like to look at life as having meaning because it just helps us find a narrative. Whether you believe that to be true or not, we're going to explore today.
And I find that everything happens for a reason. It's one of those things that people say to try to make others feel better, but it's not as effective as you may think.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times it's a way to avoid the discomfort of what's actually happening. But let's see what these people have to say.
Yeah, because we don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Does everything happen for a reason? Only God would know that, right?
Yeah.
So let's see what we think about that.
All right.
What if everything you're going through is actually getting you ready? It's preparing you for what you dream of, what you asked for. You see, nothing in life is random. You might think it is, but there's a reason behind everything. It doesn't matter whether it's when something magical happens and you feel on top of the world, or when you have a disaster and you feel like the pits. It's not random. It's happened for a reason. You know, when you're deliriously happy or unbelievably miserable, the times when you desperately wanted to succeed at something important but you failed, like an interview for a job, it had a reason. You're growing, and it isn't by accident. Be assured, be promised, you're on a journey that will get more beautiful the farther down the road of life you travel, and eventually you'll look back and realize and appreciate that every step you took was created only for you.
Certainly comforting.
Yeah, that was sweet.
To think that good, bad, all these things happen for a reason. And so it's nice to feel like that. But it's certainly not nice to hear that sometimes when you're going through something extremely painful or traumatic.
The take that he said I do agree with and I do really like. He's talking about happenstance. So he's saying that if a tragedy can happen randomly, then why can't something magical happen randomly as well? And do those things carry similar weight? You know, if something horrible were to happen, can we also say that good things happen for a reason, bad things happen for a reason? So I like the idea of happenstance because we really don't know what the future will hold. And does it happen for a reason? Do the experiences we have kind of compound on each other and then lead to something someday? We don't know.
Something to think about. So it's a belief ultimately that you get to choose. Do things happen for a reason or not? And if it's comforting to you, then I think that it might be a good way to help you live your life and sort through the challenges of life. We have another video here, and I believe this woman is a therapist, and she talks about kind of, you know, the negative side of telling people that things happen for a reason.
All right, let's hear it.
Everything does not happen for a reason. Try to make this one brief because I feel like I ramble on some of these explanations. Let's break down the fact that everything does not happen for a reason and the reasons why that statement is so minimizing and untherapeutic. I forgot the toner. Whatever. I'm Lauren. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and this is in between sessions where I talk about therapy and therapeutic topics in between my sessions. Everything happens for a reason.
I just want to say, as a therapist, this is so real. Just the whispering, the rushing, like the franticness in between sessions. I can relate, okay?
Is usually said when someone is very uncomfortable with the information that they are responding to. Is about them making themselves feel better, not about you feeling better. The reality of the world that we live in is that tragedy happens all around us. To tell someone that everything happens for a reason is magical thinking. I like to think about it like SpongeBob when he's like, imagination. Magical thinking. We try so hard sometimes in life to make meaning out of things that don't actually have any meaning. And I think that that is one of people's collective biggest downfalls, is that we're constantly searching for meaning maybe where it doesn't exist. And we make meaning about our thoughts and our feelings when sometimes they're just thoughts and sometimes they're just feelings. I think it's really important to not use the phrase everything happens for a reason, especially when it comes to grief, trauma. Those two things don't have reasons behind them because they're very illogical. Someone dying suddenly doesn't have a reason. There's not a lesson behind that. They didn't do anything wrong, or you don't need to learn anything about resiliency by losing someone in your life. The same thing about trauma, where I always say to clients, trauma is illogical. It is something that has been taken away from you. It is never supposed to happen. So this idea that everything happens for a reason and I have to find the meaning in my trauma is a really unfair expectation to put.
I think that's a great point, is that when you're dealing with something like a trauma, maybe you were abused when you were really small, it could really make you angry for someone to sit there and tell you, well, that happened for a reason. Now, if that makes you feel better about the situation and you want to say, okay, I'm going to use this terrible thing to make me stronger, or this is how I'm going to interpret it, and that works for you, that's fine. But, it does feel frustrating to think, okay, your dad died from cancer and that happened for a reason. Or your mom died from this and that happened for a reason, Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
It's an awful thing. Your dad died suddenly. That happened for a reason. Where's the lesson in this, right?
And I think the question here is, can we experience painful things and they just be painful things? Can we accept that tragedies happen in the world and that's, how life is? I think that's kind of the bottom line of the question. Margaret, who we worked with a lot, had a couple hot takes on this that I still think about to this day, and I kind of go back and forth about. She was not a big fan of gratitude, believe it or not. And that was because she worked extensively with people who have experienced trauma.
Yeah.
And so trying to slap on, oh, well, you should just be grateful for what you have, is such a huge dismissal of the pain and trauma and the impact of those experiences on that person. And her other hot take was about forgiveness. She would say that, all too often people, society, sometimes therapists will pressure people who have experienced trauma into forgiving their perpetrator when they haven't even understood what's happened, when they've barely processed the pain that's been caused onto them.
Yeah.
And so those were her two hot takes that I think about, because I do think there's value in gratitude. I do think there's value in thinking everything happens for a reason, but it is your own personal choice. It's your own personal choice to believe. And I do think it's a process to get to that point. Not everybody will, not everybody has to, and it's very dependent on the situation.
There's a little bit more here.
Okay, let's see what she's got to say.
I feel like there was something else I wanted to say on that subject. If somebody responds to you with this comment, you can set a boundary and say, actually, I don't really believe that. Like, I don't believe that everything happens for a reason. I don't believe we always have to have meaning and find a silver lining in really terrible things. What I'm asking for right now is support, not a solution and not an encouragement. See if they can step it up and come up with something else to say. And if that's not comfortable for you, I just want you to keep in mind in your heart that you don't have to find meaning from something bad happening to you or something bad happening around you, because what often happens with that is an experience of self-blame. So when we can't find meaning in something, we say, well, this happened because I'm bad, or this happened because I didn't do XYZ 1, 2, 3, and then we create more negative thinking about ourselves, others, and the world, because that's the only way we can make sense of what happened to us and find the reason. You don't have to find a reason if something horrible has happened to you in your life. You don't have to make a silver lining out of it. You don't have to make a lesson out of it. Hope you have a great day, and let me know if you want me to do any other of these phrases in the comments.
I thought she made some really good points. And, one of the other things that I was thinking is that we can bring these bad things upon ourselves. And sometimes it's just with our thoughts. Sometimes we think, oh my gosh, if I had this bad thought, I'm going to cause this bad thing to happen.
Like we'll jinx ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that in a way gives yourself a little bit too much power that you can magically cause awful things to happen. You know?
Yeah. Right. And a lot of times retrospect here is 2020. Sometimes we go through a slew of experiences and then later down the line we're able on our own will and on our own accord to connect the dots and find the thread connecting all of our experiences and reflect and learn and grow. But to say that everything happens for a reason all of the time, you know, that can be a distressing thought in some ways too.
Sure.
What's playing in my head is that clip of, I think it's Cardi B saying, well, what was the reason? What was the reason? That's just what's playing in my head right now. And that can be applicable to breakups too. Sometimes we go through a breakup and we don't even understand our ex's reasons for why the relationship is ending. And then from a bigger picture, we're thinking, well, why did this happen to me? Why did I find the love of my life and it didn't work out? So, you know, this can cause our thoughts to really spiral.
Yeah.
Sometimes being able to think about the pain, process the pain, experience the pain for what it is, can be really valuable.
Yeah, and it made me think of Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, who was a psychologist in a prison camp. And he talked about that experience and how thinking about his wife and their life together, and I guess maybe if they were going to have a future together. It's been a while since I read that one. But he found meaning, and it helped him get through that traumatic situation where people around him were dying left and right. So, you know, if you want to use looking for the meaning behind things as a coping mechanism, it could help you. You don't have to, but it is an option that many people do find helpful. You know, now, when you think about a breakup and, you know, did this breakup happen for a reason, meaning like, was I meant to be with somebody else or whatever it might be, that's different than there are reasons that caused the breakup.
Right.
Like we argued all the time, we had two different attachment styles and we were caught in the avoidant anxious trap. That's different than there's meaning behind this.
Right.
But that is one thing you might want to consider for yourself is, how am I looking at this breakup? Am I looking at it like, you know, there's meaning behind this, and what could it be? Could it be, well, I'm going to use this to heal my attachment issues and become more confident? That is a personal decision.
Right. It's a lot to think about, especially during a breakup. I know sometimes we can be looking for signs, right? We think, well, everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason why they sent me that silly reel at 3 a.m., you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes we can kind of get into these spiraling thoughts. We, on our channel, talk a lot about relationships, on working on those skills. So yes, while things happen for a reason, there are some things we can control, there are some things we can't control. That's something to understand and think about too.
But I thought she made some really good points there. And yeah, nobody wants to feel like somebody's telling you, well, that awful, horrible thing happened for a reason. And you're just like, what was the reason?
Right.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel very validating.
Right. And it's something to think about when being compassionate towards others who are going through a hard time. You know, instead of saying, well, everything happens for a reason and moving on, asking yourself, well, how can I sit with this person and their discomfort? How can I sit with them through this feeling and accept that there's crappy things that happen in life and they are painful for what they are?
A lot to think about, and hopefully this one's been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askgreg.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Coach Victoria is also available for Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.